Since childhood, we are taught to see the world through a set of rules and beliefs that seem unquestionable. These rules shape our perception, dictating what is possible and what is not, what is right and what is wrong. We take them as truths, rarely questioning their origins. Yet, if we pause and examine them closely, we begin to realize that these so-called truths are not absolute. They are merely agreements, collective assumptions shaped by time, society, and our own experiences. And here lies an astonishing discovery: reality, as we perceive it, is negotiable. Imagine, for a moment, a fish born in a small pond. It grows up believing that the pond is the entire world, that the muddy floor beneath it is the foundation of existence, that the boundaries of the water define the limits of possibility. It never questions whether there is an ocean beyond, never considers that the world could be different from the one it has known. But if one day that fish is placed in the vast expanse of the sea, its entire concept of reality shatters. What was once an unshakable truth, the idea that the pond was all there is, turns out to be nothing more than a limitation imposed by its environment and its own mind. We, too, live in conceptual ponds of our own making. The limitations we perceive, whether about age, health, success, or happiness, are often nothing more than constructs of belief. Research in neuroscience confirms this. The human brain, specifically through the reticular activating system, RAS, acts as a filter, deciding which pieces of information from the outside world will enter our conscious awareness. If you believe that opportunities are scarce, your RAS will filter out evidence of abundance and reinforce scarcity. If you believe that aging is synonymous with decline, your brain will highlight every ache and struggle while ignoring signs of vitality and resilience. This is not philosophy, this is hard science. Studies in cognitive psychology show that our expectations shape our perception, a phenomenon known as confirmation bias. What we believe, we see; what we expect, we experience. This is why two people can live in the same world but experience completely different realities. One person, convinced that their best years are behind them, might see every challenge as proof of decline. Another, who believes in lifelong growth, will approach the same situation as an opportunity to evolve, adapt, and discover new strengths. The key difference is not in their circumstances, but in the lens through which they view life. If reality is negotiable, how do we begin to renegotiate it? The first step is to identify the invisible scripts that have shaped our perception. Ask yourself, who told me that things must be this way? What if there was another way? These questions may seem simple, but they have the power to create cracks in rigid beliefs, allowing new possibilities to emerge. Dr. Carol Dweck, a renowned psychologist at Stanford University, demonstrated through decades of research that people with a fixed mindset believe their abilities and potential are predetermined, while those with a growth mindset understand that intelligence, skills, and even physical vitality can be cultivated. Her studies show that individuals who shift from a fixed to a growth mindset experience greater achievement, better health outcomes, and even increased neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to adapt and rewire itself at any age. Consider the story of Ernestine Shepherd, who, at the age of 56, decided to transform her life. Overweight and inactive, she believed, as many do, that aging meant inevitable decline. But one day, she challenged that belief. What if she could become stronger? What if her body was still capable of growth? She started with small steps, walking a few minutes each day, making slightly healthier choices. Over time, her belief system shifted. At 74, she became the world's oldest competitive female bodybuilder, proving that the limits we accept are often the ones we have imposed upon ourselves. The same principle applies beyond physical health. Studies in gerontology show that people who maintain a sense of purpose live longer, healthier lives. The work of Dr. Becca Levy at Yale University has demonstrated that individuals who hold positive perceptions about aging live an average of 7.5 years longer than those who see aging as a process of inevitable decline. Why? Because their beliefs influence their behaviors, their resilience, and even their immune system's strength. So, how can we apply this to our own lives? The answer is action: small, deliberate shifts in perspective that begin to reshape our experience. Try this. For the next 7 days, challenge one belief that has limited you. If you believe you are too old to learn something new, commit to reading about a subject that fascinates you. If you believe physical strength is beyond your reach, Start with a single stretch or movement today. If you think meaningful relationships are only for the young, reach out to someone with curiosity rather than hesitation. Notice how each small action begins to rewrite the narrative you have been living by. Every great transformation begins with awareness. Once we see that the rules we have followed are not laws of nature but merely assumptions, we gain the power to redefine them. Like the fish that once thought the pond was the whole world, we are capable of stepping beyond the boundaries we once accepted. The question is not whether change is possible, it is whether we are willing to claim the power to create it. Your reality is not a direct reflection of the world but a filtered projection of what your brain decides is important. Every second, your senses take in an overwhelming amount of information. Millions of bits of data flood your nervous system. The scent of the room, the texture of your clothing, the subtle hum of distant noise, the details of objects in your peripheral vision. Most of it vanishes before it reaches your conscious mind. Why? Because your brain, particularly the reticular activating system, RAS, is designed to filter out the irrelevant and highlight only what it deems important. But here's the astonishing part. What your brain considers important is largely determined by your beliefs, expectations, and habits of thought. In other words, what you focus on, you experience. Think of your RAS as a mental searchlight. If you decide to buy a red car, suddenly, you start noticing red cars everywhere. They were always there, but your brain never flagged them as relevant before. The same principle applies to everything in life. If you believe that opportunities are rare, your mind will unconsciously ignore them, filtering out moments of possibility. If you think that aging is synonymous with decline, your brain will highlight signs of fatigue and struggle while overlooking vitality and growth. This is not mysticism, it's cognitive psychology. Dr. Michael Merzenich, a leading neuroscientist in the field of neuroplasticity, has demonstrated that our brains are not static but constantly rewiring themselves in response to our mental habits. Every thought you reinforce strengthens neural pathways, making it easier to notice and believe in similar thoughts in the future. Your perception of reality, then, is not a passive reception but an active creation. Consider this. Two people walk into the same room, but they experience completely different realities. One, a retired professor, sees the space as rich with conversation and learning, eager to engage in discussions. The other, someone who believes they are too old to connect with new people, immediately assumes that no one is interested in what they have to say. They both inhabit the same physical space, but their internal filters shape two entirely different experiences. The first sees warmth, interest, and new ideas. The second sees isolation, disinterest, and confirmation of their own loneliness. The room has not changed. The filter has. This is why a shift in focus can lead to a shift in life. Studies show that people who deliberately cultivate a positive perception of aging not only feel better but actually live longer. Dr. Becca Levy at Yale University found that individuals who held positive beliefs about aging lived an average of 7.5 years longer than those with negative perceptions. Why? Because their mindset influenced their daily behaviors. They remained active, socially engaged, and resilient to challenges. The science is clear. What you focus on expands. If focus determines experience, then the question becomes, how do we take control of our mental searchlight? The first step is to become aware of your habitual thoughts. Take a moment and ask yourself, what do I notice most in my daily life? Do I tend to focus on what is going wrong or what is going well? Do I look for problems or solutions? Do I expect to feel limited, or do I seek out signs of my own strength? Awareness is the first step toward change, because once you see your patterns, you can begin to shift them. The second step is to deliberately prime your mind to notice what empowers you. Just as you can train your eyes to spot red cars, you can train your mind to find evidence of health, joy, and opportunity. One simple but powerful way to do this is through intentional questions. Instead of asking, why do I feel tired? Try asking, where do I feel energy in my body today? Instead of, why is life getting harder? Ask, what small moments of ease or joy can I notice today? Questions shape focus, and focus shapes reality. Another technique is visualization. Olympic athletes use this principle to train their minds for success. Before ever stepping onto the track, they vividly imagine themselves running their race, feeling every motion in their body as if it were real. Studies show that this kind of mental rehearsal activates the same neural pathways as the actual activity, making success more likely. You can use this same method if you want to feel stronger. Spend a few minutes each day visualizing yourself walking with energy, standing tall, moving effortlessly. If you want to feel more connected, imagine engaging in meaningful conversations, sharing laughter, being valued. Your brain does not distinguish between a vividly imagined experience and a real one, it simply strengthens the pathways you use most. Beyond visualization, your environment plays a crucial role in shaping what you focus on. If your daily life is filled with conversations about decline, complaints, and negativity, your brain will naturally highlight those themes. But if you deliberately surround yourself with stories of resilience, examples of strength, and people who inspire you, your perception begins to shift. This is why reading books about people who overcame challenges, engaging in uplifting conversations, and even changing the kind of media you consume can have a profound impact. What enters your mind shapes what it expects to see. Finally, taking small, tangible actions reinforces your new focus. If you want to shift your attention toward vitality, engage in one small act that represents it. Take a 5-minute walk. Try a new movement. Practice deep breathing. If you want to focus on connection, make a single phone call. Write a note of appreciation. Start a conversation. Each small action sends a message to your brain. This is important. And as your brain begins to highlight more of what aligns with that message, your experience of reality shifts accordingly. The beauty of this process is that it is never too late to change. Your brain is adaptable at every stage of life. The limits you have seen in the past were not necessarily real, they were simply reflections of what your mind was conditioned to notice. But now, you have the power to choose differently. What if today, you decided to tune your mental searchlight toward what strengthens you? What if you made it a habit to look for signs of growth rather than decline? What if, instead of passively accepting the version of reality your old filters have created, you actively trained your mind to see the possibilities still available to you? Because the truth is, reality is not just something we observe, it is something we shape. And at any moment, we can choose to shape it in a way that serves us better. You do not see the world as it is. You see it as you are. Every moment, your mind interprets reality through a set of beliefs, many of which you did not choose, but inherited. These beliefs act as invisible architects, shaping your decisions, emotions, and actions. Some empower you, giving you strength and resilience. Others, however, quietly limit you, creating barriers that do not exist outside your mind. These are called limiting beliefs, and they are perhaps the most powerful illusions of all. Limiting beliefs are not just abstract ideas. They manifest in the words we tell ourselves. I'm too old to learn something new. Success is for other people, not me. Relationships always end in pain. These statements seem harmless, yet they act as silent instructions to the brain, shaping the choices we make and the ones we never attempt. The reason they hold such power is that the brain operates on a principle of efficiency. Once a belief is formed, often through repeated experiences or inherited ideas, your brain works to confirm it. This is called confirmation bias, a cognitive shortcut where we unconsciously seek out evidence to support what we already believe. If you believe aging is a process of inevitable decline, your mind will filter the world accordingly, noticing every ache, every forgotten word, every physical limitation, while ignoring signs of strength, energy, and adaptability. If you believe money is only for the lucky, you will dismiss opportunities that contradict this belief, even when they appear directly in front of you. The belief itself becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. But here's the remarkable truth. Beliefs are not fixed. They are learned, which means they can be unlearned. The field of neuroscience has proven that our brains are plastic, capable of rewiring and restructuring themselves at any age. Dr. Norman Doidge, in his groundbreaking work on neuroplasticity, has shown that even deeply ingrained thought patterns can be changed when we consciously introduce new ways of thinking. In other words, the limits you accept today are not permanent. They are mental constructs that can be reshaped. To break free from limiting beliefs, we must first expose them. Ask yourself, what assumptions about myself or the world have I never questioned? Write them down, then challenge them. Who told you these things? A parent? A teacher? Society? Are they universally true? Or are they simply opinions passed down through generations? Consider this. There was a time when it was believed that running a mile in under 4 minutes was impossible. That the human body was not built for such speed. For centuries, this belief held firm, until Roger Bannister shattered it in 1954. Within months of his achievement, others broke the same barrier. The limitation had never been physical, it was psychological. The moment the belief was disproven, new possibilities became visible. The same principle applies to every aspect of life. If you believe it's too late to build new skills, look at studies on lifelong learning. Research from the University of Texas found that older adults who engaged in challenging new activities such as learning a language or playing an instrument experienced significant improvements in cognitive function. If you believe your past mistakes define you, consider the science of identity. Dr. Carol Dweck's research on mindset has shown that people who see their abilities as flexible rather than fixed are more resilient, more successful, and more fulfilled. If you believe happiness is beyond your reach, understand that happiness is not a condition, it is a skill. Studies from Harvard's Grant Study, which tracked participants over 80 years, found that relationships and mindset, not wealth, youth, or status, were the strongest predictors of happiness. Recognizing that a belief is limiting is only the first step. To replace it, you must introduce a new, empowering narrative. This does not mean blind optimism. It means systematically training your brain to notice what it previously ignored. One effective method is cognitive reframing, deliberately shifting perspective. Instead of thinking, "I'm too old for this," try, "With experience comes wisdom, and I can learn in my own way." Instead of, "This is just how I've always been," ask, "What if my best self is still ahead of me?" Even subtle shifts in language create different mental landscapes. Studies on neuro-linguistic programming, NLP, suggest that the words we use to describe our experiences influence how we process them. Changing your narrative is not just about thinking differently, it is about seeing differently. But thought alone is not enough. Action is what cements belief. If you want to believe in your ability to grow, take one small step beyond your comfort zone, read about something new. Engage in a different type of conversation. Try a physical activity you assumed was beyond you. Each action sends a message to your brain. This is possible. The more evidence you create, the stronger the belief becomes, until the new reality you once questioned becomes self-evident. The greatest prison is not built of walls, but of unexamined beliefs. Yet at any moment, we have the key to unlock it. If reality is negotiable, then the question is not whether you can change, but whether you will. What if, starting today, you made the radical decision to question what you once assumed to be true? What if you chose to see every limit not as a stop sign, but as a doorway to a new possibility? Because the truth is, the only thing standing between you and a greater reality is the belief that it cannot be done. And beliefs can change. Emotions are not obstacles to be avoided, they are messengers carrying essential truths. Yet, from an early age, we are taught to suppress them. Don't cry, be strong, don't be angry. These messages shape our relationship with emotions, leading us to believe that feeling deeply is a sign of weakness, that expressing sadness or frustration makes us vulnerable. But here is the paradox. What we suppress does not disappear, it festers. Emotions, when unacknowledged, do not dissolve into nothingness, they embed themselves in the body, in the mind, in the very fabric of our daily lives. Neuroscientists have long studied the connection between unprocessed emotions and physical health. Dr. Bessel van der Kolk, in his groundbreaking research on trauma, demonstrated that emotions are not merely psychological, they leave imprints on the nervous system, influencing everything from immune function to muscle tension. Studies at Harvard Medical School have shown that people who habitually repress emotions are at a higher risk of heart disease, hypertension, and chronic pain. What this means is clear. Avoiding emotions does not free us from their effects, it simply buries them deeper, where they shape our behavior in ways we do not always recognize. Consider how a repressed emotion manifests in daily life. Anger, when denied, often transforms into irritability or passive aggression, influencing our relationships in ways we do not intend. Unacknowledged grief can harden into numbness, making joy feel distant and inaccessible. Fear, when suppressed, turns into avoidance, keeping us from experiences that could enrich our lives. When we ignore emotions, they do not simply vanish, they redirect themselves into unconscious patterns that shape the way we think, act, and experience the world. But there is another way. Rather than suppressing emotions, we can learn to engage with them consciously, allowing them to move through us rather than becoming trapped within us. The first step is recognition. At any moment, pause and ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? Name it. Research in affect labeling, naming an emotion as we experience it, has shown that this simple act reduces the intensity of negative feelings. Neuroscientist Dr. Matthew Lieberman at UCLA found that when participants labeled emotions, activity in the amygdala, the brain's fear center, decreased while activity in the prefrontal cortex, responsible for reasoning and self-regulation, increased. This means that naming an emotion gives us power over it, creating distance between ourselves and the feeling rather than allowing it to consume us. Next, locate where the emotion lives in your body. Does sadness sit in your chest? Does anxiety tighten your stomach? Emotions are not just mental experiences, they have physical signatures. Acknowledging them allows us to process them instead of holding onto them unconsciously. Breathing is one of the most powerful tools for emotional regulation, yet most people underestimate its impact. When an emotion arises, observe your breath. Does it become shallow? Does your body tense? Instead of fighting the feeling, practice deep, intentional breathing. Inhale deeply through the nose for 4 seconds. Hold for 4 seconds, then exhale slowly through the mouth. This simple practice activates the parasympathetic nervous system, signaling to your brain that you are safe. Dr. Richard Brown, a professor of psychiatry at Columbia University, has shown that controlled breathing reduces cortisol levels, the stress hormone, helping to regulate emotions at a physiological level. This is why breathwork has been a fundamental practice in both ancient wisdom traditions and modern therapeutic techniques. Beyond breathing, movement is another powerful way to release stored emotions. Emotions are energy, and energy needs motion. Walking, stretching, dancing, or even shaking the body can help emotions move rather than stagnate. Research by Dr. Kelly McGonigal at Stanford University has demonstrated that physical movement not only improves mood but also helps process stress and emotional buildup. In cultures around the world, movement has been used for centuries as a way to express and release emotions, whether through rituals, dance, or simple gestures of physical expression. If an emotion feels stuck, try moving your body and see how it shifts. Writing is another gateway to emotional clarity. If you feel overwhelmed by an emotion, write about it, not with the intention of crafting something poetic, but simply as a way to externalize what is happening internally. Studies from the University of Texas have shown that expressive writing, putting emotions into words on paper, improves both mental and physical health, strengthening the immune system and reducing stress-related illnesses. If you don't know where to begin, start with these prompts. What am I feeling right now? What is this emotion trying to show me? What would happen if I allowed myself to fully experience this feeling? Writing transforms emotions from vague, overwhelming forces into something tangible, something that can be understood, processed, and released. Once an emotion has been acknowledged and processed, the final step is to reframe it. Instead of seeing emotions as disruptions, we can begin to see them as teachers. What is this emotion revealing to you? Is fear showing you where you need more preparation or courage? Is sadness reminding you of something meaningful that needs attention? Is frustration signaling that a boundary needs to be set? The philosopher Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." In the same way, emotions are not barriers, they are guides. They point to what needs healing, what needs action, what needs change. By listening to them rather than suppressing them, we become more in tune with ourselves, more aware of our needs, and ultimately more at peace. Most people spend their lives running from their emotions, believing that control means avoidance. But true mastery is not about suppression, it is about transformation. When we stop resisting emotions and instead meet them with awareness, breath, movement, and reflection, we free ourselves from their unconscious grip. And when we do that, something extraordinary happens. We become lighter, clearer, more alive. Our energy is no longer trapped in old wounds or unspoken fears. We move through life with greater ease, resilience, and emotional strength. Imagine what would change if, starting today, you committed to fully feeling rather than fighting your emotions. What if you saw every emotion not as a threat but as a signal guiding you toward a deeper understanding of yourself? What if, instead of resisting what arises, You embraced it as part of the ever-unfolding experience of being human? Because the truth is, emotions are not meant to be obstacles. They are invitations to feel, to grow, to release, and ultimately, to live more fully. Attention is the most valuable currency you possess. Yet few people ever learn to master it. What you focus on expands. And where your attention goes, your life follows. In a world overflowing with distractions, the ability to direct your focus is not just a skill, it is a form of power. The human brain is wired to seek patterns and reinforce them, meaning that whatever you consistently pay attention to becomes more prominent in your reality. Neuroscientists have discovered that this process is largely governed by the reticular activating system, RAS, a network in the brainstem that filters millions of sensory inputs, allowing only a select few to reach conscious awareness. If you have ever decided to buy a certain car and then suddenly noticed that car everywhere, you have experienced your RAS in action. The truth is, your brain has always been encountering those cars. But until they became relevant to you, they remained invisible. This same mechanism applies to everything in life, whether it is opportunities, obstacles, gratitude, or fear. Whatever you train your mind to notice will shape your experience of the world. This is why two people can walk through the same city and experience entirely different realities. One might see beauty in the architecture, kindness in the faces of strangers, and inspiration in the bustling energy. The other might see only decay, frustration, and reminders of what has been lost. The city has not changed, only their filters have. Your attention acts as a lens, focusing your perception and shaping the world you see. The implications of this are profound. If you spend most of your time focused on problems, your brain will become an expert at finding them. If you direct your attention toward growth, opportunity, and connection, those things will begin to emerge more frequently. This is not wishful thinking, it is cognitive conditioning. Dr. Richard Davidson, a neuroscientist at the University of Wisconsin, has shown through brain imaging studies that sustained focus on positive experiences literally changes the structure of the brain, strengthening neural pathways associated with resilience and well-being. His research aligns with ancient wisdom, confirming what philosophers and spiritual traditions have taught for centuries. Attention is not just an observer of reality, it is a creator of it. But in today's world, your attention is constantly under siege. Social media, breaking news, advertisements, entire industries exist to hijack your focus, keeping you trapped in cycles of fear, comparison, and distraction. The average person now checks their phone over 80 times a day. Their mind pulled in countless directions. Rarely present, rarely intentional. But what if you reclaimed control? What if, instead of allowing the world to dictate where your attention goes, you consciously chose to direct it toward what nourishes and empowers you? The first step is awareness. Pay attention to what you consume. Ask yourself, do the conversations I engage in uplift me or drain me? Does the media I watch make me feel empowered or anxious? Am I giving my focus to things that strengthen me or to things that deplete me? The answers to these questions will reveal much about the reality you are shaping for yourself. Once you have identified what is stealing your attention, the next step is to redirect it. One of the simplest yet most powerful ways to do this is to begin each day with a deliberate focus. Before reaching for your phone or getting lost in the noise of the world, take a moment and ask yourself, what do I want to emphasize today? What emotion do I want to cultivate? What kind of person do I want to be in this moment? This practice may seem small, but over time, it rewires your brain, training it to seek out what you consciously prioritize. Another powerful technique is the choice point. Throughout the day, whenever you find yourself fixating on negativity or distraction, pause and ask, is this where I want to invest my attention? Is this contributing to my growth or merely draining my energy? This moment of awareness gives you the power to shift, to choose a better focus, to realign with what truly matters. Beyond mental awareness, your physical environment also plays a critical role in shaping your attention. If you surround yourself with clutter, chaos, and distractions, your mind will mirror that state. But if you intentionally create an environment that reflects clarity, order, and inspiration, your attention will naturally align with those qualities. This is why some of the most creative and productive individuals cultivate spaces that support deep focus, whether through minimalism, natural light, or carefully chosen reminders of their intentions. Consider making small changes to your surroundings. Place a notebook in a visible spot where you can write daily reflections. Remove sources of distraction that pull you into unproductive loops. Surround yourself with reminders of what inspires you. Whether it is books, photos, or simple affirmations that keep your mind aligned with your highest values. Attention is also deeply influenced by movement. Studies have shown that even brief periods of physical activity, walking, stretching, deep breathing, reset the nervous system, helping to refocus the mind. When you feel scattered, take a short walk, even if it is just to the next room. Breathe deeply, feeling the expansion of your lungs. These simple acts break the cycle of unconscious distraction and bring you back to the present moment, where attention can be harnessed with greater clarity. But perhaps the most powerful shift in attention comes from gratitude. The human brain has a built-in negativity bias, an evolutionary mechanism designed to keep us alert to danger. This is why it is easier to dwell on what is wrong rather than what is right. However, this bias can be overridden. Dr. Robert Emmons, a leading researcher on gratitude, has demonstrated that people who consciously practice gratitude experience lower levels of stress, better physical health, and greater overall life satisfaction. The reason is simple. Gratitude trains the brain to focus on abundance rather than scarcity, on what is present rather than what is missing. One of the most effective ways to shift your attention toward gratitude is to keep a simple journal. Each day, write down 3 things you are grateful for. They do not have to be grand or extraordinary. Sometimes the simplest acknowledgments have the most profound impact. I am grateful for the warmth of the sun on my face. I am grateful for the kindness of a stranger. I am grateful for the strength in my legs that allowed me to take a walk today. This practice, though seemingly small, reconditions the brain, tilting perception toward what enriches rather than what depletes. Ultimately, mastering attention is about reclaiming your ability to shape your experience of life. Instead of drifting through the days on autopilot, lost in distractions and reactive loops, you become the architect of your awareness. You decide what deserves your focus. You decide what expands in your reality. Imagine what would change if, starting today, you chose to direct your attention deliberately. Imagine if, instead of feeding fear and limitation, you fed growth, curiosity, and gratitude. The world you experience is not just something that happens to you, it is something you create through the lens of your focus. The question is not whether you have the ability to shift it. The question is, will you?